first NCCC webinar series offering for this year. Last year, I believe, did 10 webinars just for members of the NCCC campuses, and so we're offering those up again this year. And the topics were selected based upon some requests. I think we sent out a survey a couple of months back to see what people were interested in. So we took that information and compiled a list. So every quarter, we'll be sending out the list of the upcoming webinars. So there are 2 more already on the schedule. You'll be receiving information about those. I believe next month we're going to be going over what's new in Moodle 3.1, I believe is what's on the schedule for the end of September. So just keep that in mind as you're planning your month to maybe come to that one. For those of you that I may not have met before, my name is Shelley McCollum, and I'm the training coordinator, learner, and a member of our Learning Spaces team. Typically the regular webinar host, but we will have some guest speakers coming through during this series, so you'll get to meet some of our other Moodle masters, as we call them. And today, we're actually going to step a little bit outside of the box, and we're going to start talking about the fundamentals of ELIS. So can I just get in the chat maybe a heads up or a yes or a no if your campus uses ELIS or a portion of your campus uses ELIS? Didn't know if this was completely new for some people or if this is something that folks are used to seeing. And hi, Kathy. How you doing today? Glad to see you. Okay, so Angela uses ELIS. Oh, and we have a couple of other people who have joined us. Hi, Melanie. How you doing today? We're just getting started. You haven't missed much. All right. Well, for some of you, this might be new. For others, maybe this will just clarify some of the questions that you've had as you've been trying to get involved in your ELIS. So we'll see. Let's start off with the basics. What exactly is ELIS? ELIS is actually a suite of plugins that are designed to work with Moodle. So they're added to a Moodle site, and they were developed by remote learners. So we actually created these plugins, and we maintain these plugins. We did make them available to the larger Moodle community. So that's something that we have contributed to the online world, the online LMS world. But it was really designed to give you what we consider enterprise functionality. So Moodle is really good at building courses, but it's not so great at being able to extract information about those courses. And there are some limitations to exactly what you can do with users in those courses and how you can put those courses together. So that was what ELIS was designed for. It was to take Moodle to the next level. It's going to actually allow organizations to take individual Moodle courses and combine them into what we call a learning program or a learning plan. So when you're looking at using ELIS, it is not used in isolation. It is always used with Moodle. Okay? So Moodle is where you're going to build and house your course content. That's not going to change. Moodle is where grades are going to be awarded. Any assessment of student work is going to be completed within the Moodle interface. That's not going to change. Moodle's gradebook is going to continue to calculate course grades. That's not going to change. Moodle is still going to be used to track progress through materials within individual courses. So if you have specific activities that need to be completed in order for someone to receive credit for a course, then that's still going to be tracked within Moodle. You can still use the access restrictions and the activity completion options in Moodle to track all of that within individual courses. ELIS is going to come in on top of that. ELIS is going to give you an area where you can build and assign learning programs. So instead of the content in one course, you can take multiple courses from your ELIS site and string them together to develop a curriculum. Right? It's going to allow you to more easily manage your user accounts. Now you can create user accounts in Moodle, but beyond that, you're very limited as to what you can do with those user accounts once they're there. In ELIS, you have the ability to create user sets You have the ability to pull reports and even assign learning programs based upon membership in those sets. And we'll look at that more closely. But it's going to give you a little more flexibility when you're managing your users and the ability to automate a lot of that user management as well. Then ELIS is going to allow you to track student progress through series of courses. So Moodle is going to take care of tracking what they do inside of each course. ELIS is going to track their completion of courses toward the completion of an entire curriculum or learning program. Okay? So they work in conjunction with one another. You cannot have ELIS without having Moodle. So before people typically jump into ELIS, we usually recommend that they have a very strong Moodle background, not only as a course developer, but typically anyone who's going to be using the ELIS system, configuring the ELIS system, they're going to be an individual that has some Moodle administration experience as well. So let's take a moment and look at the individual parts of ELIS, because it can really be broken down into about 5 different areas that whoever is running the ELIS system is going to manage and is going to configure in order to create the types of programs and learning environment that they're looking for. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a course description. So a course description is a very generic description of a course. I always think back to my days in college where you would perhaps have a course that was required for your major. Maybe you were required to take English 301, and it would say it was a rhetoric and composition course. And that was really all that it told you in the course catalog when you were looking at the descriptions of the courses. That's what this is. It's going to list the general course objectives. It's going to determine what kind of credit is awarded to you when you finish a class that fits this course description. Course descriptions are going to be where you would build template courses. So you can actually have a template course on your Moodle site that is tied to a course description, and you can then use that to produce specific instances of that course description. Specific class instances is what we're going to call those, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Typically, do not enroll users in course descriptions. Course descriptions are those very high level, I don't want to say vague, but it is not specific. It's a very high level idea of what a course is going to entail and how much credit that course will be awarded, what it will be worth. And so I have this crazy picture of a bowl of soup, and I was telling Amy the other day, I said, well, when I was working on this, I was kind of hungry, and I was trying to figure out some way to really explain the difference between these components. And a course description would be if I said, for dinner, we're having soup, or for dinner tonight, you have your choice of soup. Soup is a very broad term. We know typically, if you were thinking about what soup is, which would kind of be your course objectives, you would say it's got a liquid base. It typically has some type of vegetable or noodle or meat, any combination of those things, right? And it's normally served in a bowl, and about 8 ounces or 12 ounces is a typical serving. So that would be kind of, how much credit is it worth, that type of thing. So very general idea, right? Now, a class instance is where you're going to get the specifics. So you come up with your course description, and then you actually have to create a class instance that is going to tie to a specific course in Moodle. So this is going to be the specific offering of a course description. This is where you get down into the nitty-gritty and the details and the actual course content. So, for example, if we continue with our soup metaphor, whereas the course description might be soup, the class instance might be hearty chicken noodle or seasoned baked potato or beef stroganoff stew. I don't even know if that exists. It just came out, right? So this is where you're going to get into the specifics, and you have all of your specific ingredients, and users might choose a different class instance in order to meet a course description requirement. So you might have multiple class instances tied to a course description. I might say everyone who wants to graduate from this program has to have gone through at least one soup course. But then they all get to pick which specific instance of soup they want. If you're a vegetarian, you might choose vegetable soup. You might choose miso soup. If you want something a little spicy, you might choose some kind of Thai soup, right? So that's going to be the difference. Course description awards credit. Class instance is going to be a very specific instance. We'll actually have a course facilitator or instructor tied to it because it's going to be linked to the actual course in Moodle. Okay, this is where your users are going to be enrolled. And because of ELIS, you can actually enroll individual users into class instances, or you can enroll users by sets into class instances. And again, we'll talk about user sets in a little more detail later, but just know that you don't have to put individuals in the courses one at a time. And some of this process can be automated as well. Any questions so far about the difference between a course description and a class instance? Typically, when people are starting out in Moodle, the first thing they do is they develop course descriptions. They put their course descriptions into ELIS. Then they build their classes in Moodle, and they add a class instance in ELIS. Or if you're building a template course in your course description, you build a template course, you can actually have ELIS create class instances for you. It will replicate that template course as you need new specific classes created for that course description. And then it basically builds the course shell with any materials that you may have had in the template course. Then you can assign an instructor to that course, and your instructor could come in and modify it as they needed. And you would actually enroll your users into the class instance, not into the course description. Okay. The nice thing about this is that if you have a course description that needs to be re-offered, that has to be offered every term. I'm going to have an instance of English 301. I'm going to offer it every semester. I might have multiple instances of English 301 because I might have a Monday, Wednesday course, and I might have a Tuesday, Thursday offering of that course. They all have the same course description, but they are different class instances. So everyone who takes a version of 301 gets the credit for it, but the version they're going to take is going to be the class instance. Typically, this part is fairly easy for people in a university setting to understand because they're used to dealing with course catalogs and then the specific listings of courses from term to term that students actually enroll in or register for. Okay. So this is still working with the courses on pretty much an individual level. But as I mentioned earlier, ELIS has the ability for you to take those individual course descriptions and those individual class instances and group them together so that you can actually build a curriculum, a program of study, or what some people refer to as a learning plan. You might think of this as a degree plan because you're all working in higher ed, right? So your students have a degree plan, and if they want a degree in, say, engineering, they're going to have so many hours of math courses and so many hours of science courses, and you probably make them take at least one English course, right? And maybe a history course thrown in there so that they know a little bit of information, right? So that's going to be your program. It's made up of the course descriptions. The program is the very generalized curriculum. Think of it as a menu. If you go to a restaurant, you have a menu and it's divided up so that you have appetizers, salads, entrees, desserts, and drinks. Maybe you go to a restaurant and they say, we have a special tonight. You can have an appetizer for the table. Then you can have a salad, an entree, a dessert, and a drink, and it's all $25. That would be a program. Very generic terms, right? You have to have an entree. That would be like a course description. But what qualifies for the entree is going to be for you to decide. That's where you're going to get into the specifics. The programs allow you to set requirements and or prerequisites. So if you say, somebody has to have finished all of their math credits before they can move on to their science credits, you could set those as the requirements or prerequisites. You could say they must have one course from each of these specific departments. You could set that as your requirements, just like I just did in my example of the special. You can have one item from each area of the menu. Okay, that's the program. Typically, you don't enroll users into an actual program. What you do is you enroll them into a specific instance of that program that has specific courses tied to it from the course descriptions. So you're going to look at what we call a track. So a track is a specific offering of a program. I like to think about this as maybe you have within your campuses professional development for your faculty. And every year, I used to work in public education, we would have to do a bloodborne pathogens course and hazardous materials course. Typically, you have something about sexual harassment in the business place. For something that y'all might do for your online, maybe you have something about accessibility for your instructors so that they understand what that means to have an accessible course. Okay, so those would be the course descriptions, and that would be the program. But you offer it every fall and every spring for new hires, and you want to track when people go through these courses because you know that they are certified in each of those, so to speak, for a year. Okay, so the offering, the specific offering that you're sending them through, the fall 2016 offering would be a track. So you might have the fall 2016 offering of employee required professional development, right? That employee required professional development is your program. The fall 2016 offering is the track. And then you would have a separate spring 2016 offering and then a separate fall 2017 offering so that you would know when people came through. Okay. So a track is a specific offering of a program. It's usually tied to a time frame or a term, although not always. You could also have, in an education setting, you might have an honors track. So you might have the same degree plan that you would have, but maybe the specific courses that those students that want to graduate with honors have to take are specific sections that are considered honors sections. So they meet those requirements for the program, but they're using specific class instances that may be different from the ones that are available to just someone getting the general degree and not the honors version of the degree. So there are lots of different options for how you can use tracks and programs. Just know that a program is made up of those generic course descriptions, so it's more like your degree plan, and the track would be the actual class instances, the specifics that you took to meet those requirements, or the specifics that you're going to require from a group to meet the overall program requirements. And they might change from year to year. You may have, I know in public education down here in Texas, we had degree plans for someone to graduate from high school, and they added some requirements and those were phased in. So students that were freshmen would be on a different track from a student that was a junior because the junior year didn't have the same requirements that the students that were freshmen had because those requirements were being phased in. So they would be in a different track. Okay. Users and user sets can be assigned or enrolled into tracks. And again, this can be automated. So instead of just enrolling them in a single class instance, you can enroll users into a track and they are automatically enrolled into a number of class instances that meet all of the requirements they would need in order to complete their program. Okay, so you put them in a track. It has class instances of all the course descriptions required to meet the requirements for a program. Questions about the difference between a program and a track? This is one of those things that once you get in there and start putting them together, really starts to make more sense as you use it. But These are the basics you have to understand before you jump in, or people don't know where to start. Now with the users, accounts sync between ELIS and Moodle. So you can have them sync from ELIS to Moodle. So you create all of your users in ELIS, and when you create them in ELIS, it creates a Moodle account for them. Or you can have it go the other way, where they're created in Moodle, and if they are created in Moodle, it creates an account for them in ELIS. Or you can have them go back and forth. So you can have it go both directions if you like. Typically, we would recommend that you choose one direction, whichever one you want to do. Okay. The user sets in ELIS are sort of similar to the cohorts in Moodle if you've ever played around with those, because they are really used for enrollment purposes. But unlike the cohorts in Moodle, you have some advantages. And the number one thing about user sets that I appreciate about ELIS is that they can be created automatically based on profile fields that you have in your user profiles. So let's say you're a site that allows for email-based self-registration. You could ask some questions that would populate profile fields when someone creates an account on your site. For example, what is your major? Depending on what they select, I'm going to be an engineering major, then that could then place that student into a user set for engineering majors. Okay. You can have users in multiple user sets at the same time. Then those user sets can be auto-assigned to tracks, and or they can be auto-enrolled into specific class instances. So if someone checks that they're an engineering student, that profile field automatically puts them in the engineering student user set. That engineering set student user set is automatically enrolled into the engineering track. And then they could, if you wanted, have them be auto-enrolled into all of the courses. So they are automatically assigned to what they need. Or you could allow them to self-enroll in whichever courses are available in that track. So the main benefit as far as user management with ELIS is the automation. It's one of those things that has for years been kind of lacking in the Moodle interface. The closest thing you have right now is a cohort sync. That can actually get kind of messy as well. If you remove someone from a cohort in Moodle, it actually can unenroll them from the course, and you don't have an option. It just takes them out. And with ELIS, you do still have the option. You can remove someone from a track, and you can choose to allow them to stay in the courses that they were already enrolled in, so they don't lose any of their work. So that's kind of nice. You can also at any time add multiple courses to a track. So for example, well, let's look at some examples. Let's look at some examples. I think if you see this in action, it will start to make more sense. So let's go to kind of just a corporate scenario first. This is one of our admin sites. And let me get logged in again. Log me out. And we have a dummy company called Acme. And Acme has a new employee orientation. And you might have something similar to this on your campuses. And this is on, ELIS is on our admin 2.9 and admin 3.0 sandbox sites. So if you're in our site administrator track, you can always go and poke around in here. And just remember, you can't hurt anything on the admin site because it's going to automatically reset every hour on the hour. So you can go in and do whatever you want to it, and it will just revert right back to what it was at the end of the hour. So don't be nervous. This is a great place to go and learn about all of this. So the first thing we did is we actually created a user set for our Acme employees. And when you create user sets, as I was saying earlier, you have the ability to associate it with a profile field. Now, if Acme was on their own site, and the only two groups of people they had on their site were either a contractor or an actual Acme employee, they could have a profile field as contractor, and if it is not checked, that means that they must be an employee. So that's how this one was set up. If the contractor field is not checked, they are automatically put into the Acme employee account, Acme employee user set. And you can see it auto-populated the user set. And if I want, I could come in and I could remove anyone from the user set if I needed to. I could just drag them down and then unassign them from that user set. And I could do all of them at once. This is a great way, ELIS is a great way to manage your users in your courses en masse, right? You can do it all at once in bulk. So then after we have our user set, so I have all my people in the right user, I'm going to go in and I'm going to look at the programs that I have. So I have a program called New Employee Orientation. We're just going to go in and take a quick look at the program. You can see that it has 4 credits that are required. In order to finish this program, they have to earn 4 credits. If I wanted to, I could actually set a time limit, how long they had to complete this program. And then the program has course descriptions assigned to it. So these are my 4 course descriptions of my 4 courses. And you can see each of them is required. And if I wanted to, I could actually make one a prerequisite for the other. So if I wanted everyone to have to go through the company overview first, I could set that as the prerequisite. I would actually have to go to the other 3 courses and set the overview as the prerequisite for it. So I could come in and I could say, oh yes, the company overview. That's all I have to do. Done. So now that's a prerequisite for this course. And I would do that for all the courses I want it to be a prerequisite for. So when the users went in, they would be able to see the courses they were going to have to take, but they would have to complete the prerequisite before it would let them into any of the others. So you actually get to control how they proceed through their courses. Now the courses, again, are those very generic descriptions. I wanted to go look closer at a course description so that you could see some of the options that we have in it. We're going to talk a little in a little more detail about learning objectives, but you can actually require a specific element of the course be completed with a specific grade. So for example, if you had a final quiz in a course, and in order for ELIS to consider this complete, they have to have scored a specific grade on that quiz. You could do that as a learning objective. And then we also have what are called results engines that are going to allow some things to be automated based on the results of this course. So those are set typically at the course description level, although the results engines can also be set for specific class instances if you have something different you need for a specific class instance. Once you have your course description, and we'll look at the details very quickly. You can, oh, let's go where we can edit so it actually looks like you can put. Your description is typically your course objectives. This is where you determine how much credit this is worth. You can also have a minimum grade for completion, and if you're charging, you can actually do what the cost of that is. And then here I've tied it to my template. So this is my generic company overview template. And if I ever want another class instance to be created, I can come over to class instances and I can add a class instance of this course description, and it will take that template course and duplicate it for me. Okay. Angela, you're probably not alone. I get that a lot. A lot of people have it on their site and they have no idea what exactly it does and what it's for. So if you're not using it now, after this, you may have an idea for how you could use it. I know a lot of folks, especially in the education world, that are using it for professional development on that side so they can better manage their employees. Now, if I go into a class instance here, this is typically where people would be enrolled. You can actually do wait lists so that you could have only a certain number of students allowed in this course. Once that number is reached, anybody else could be put on a wait list, and then you could have the ability as an administrator to come in and move people off of the wait list into the actual course to go ahead and enroll them if you decide you want to enlarge the course, or if you had some people who dropped out, something like that. And that you could do that automatically too, as far as the dropouts, by doing the auto enroll from wait list. You can also have specific start and end dates. Remember, usually a class instance, it's a specific offering of that course. So think about in your setting, it might be for a specific semester. And so it would have an actual start and end time, depending on the scenario, though, if it's a professional development course, you may give them, less time to complete it than a semester, or they may have the entire year to complete it, or it could be something that's just open all the time for them and they can go in any time they want. So then those class instances have been added into a track. So here's the specific track for 2016. So everybody gets assigned through the user set to the track. You can see there are 4 class instances in this track, and the user sets that are assigned to it, my Acme employees, were all assigned to that one. Okay. Now, we use ELIS in learning spaces. So if any of you have been in our learning spaces site, we use ELIS to control who has access to what courses. So I'm currently logged in as a site administrator, and I'm going to go in and show you all of the courses that we have available. So we have our Remote Learner Solutions courses. Right now, we have Office 365. We're about to have a Totara course in there. We have our resources. That's going to be our webinars and our support. And then we have an ELIS Administrator path that has an ELIS training course in it. We have Site Administrator. It's a series of 26 courses. We have that for Moodle 3.0 all the way down to Moodle 2.7. Right? And we have Course Developer, which is a series of 26 courses, also for version 3.0 down to version 2.6, actually, for Course Developer. Because I'm a site administrator, I get to see all of this. And depending on how you get your Learning Spaces subscription, you might see all of that as well. If you were an ELIS administrator with an individual subscription, you would be able to have access to all of these. All of that is controlled through ELIS. People are assigned to a user set, and based on their profile field, we put them in different tracks, and they're allowed into all of those specific class instances. However, we have some people who have chosen to limit the courses that are available to their users. For example, we have a college that has a site license for all of their faculty. This is Chafee College. And Chafee was originally working on Moodle version 2.8. Now, most of you are probably familiar that if you don't know what version you're in, it could get very confusing. If somebody came onto a site and it said Moodle version 3.0 and they were going through the training and they were talking about all these features that are not in version 2.8, and the teacher didn't realize that they were not on version 3.0, they were actually using 2.8 at work. So Chafee asked initially if we could limit the courses available so that their teachers would only see the course developer courses for version 2.8. Okay, so we had the Chafee track that we set up separately. We used the same courses, same class instances, same course descriptions for our standard course developer 2.8, but that was their track and it's tracked separately. We use that for reporting. We can pull reports specifically for that track and specifically for this user set. We also added an extra course that they wanted as introductory material so that all of their users had to go through that course. So let me log in. We're going to pick a user, see who I can get. I have a Chafee test user. I can't get to the bottom of my page. I'm going to go log in as a Chafee test user and you'll see the difference. Whoops. Let's just try. Here we go. So I'm going to go in as this student test 1. Now log in as that student. And now when I go, they have a much shorter menu. This is all that's available to them. All of those courses are still on the same site. They're not being taken to a different site. All of the courses are still available to other people on the site to hide the courses. And we actually didn't have to enroll everyone into all of these courses We could have if we wanted, but we didn't have to because they get to choose which courses they want to take. They're not required to take any specific courses. However, if they do take them all, they have finished Chafee's program and they have a certificate that comes out of there. So it's a great way to manage multiple groups going through different sets of courses at the same time. And they might be earning the same credit, but they're using different specific instances. There might be some customized stuff in their class instances that would give them credit for one of our generic course descriptions. Now, we already talked about how you can set prerequisites and require courses. You also, as I showed you, have the ability to assign credit values for specific class instances, right? You also, as I mentioned, have the ability to do learning objectives. We have some of those in some of our courses. For example, we use the final quiz. And for the Chafee organization, for example, they have to finish their prerequisite. There it is. They have to finish their prerequisite before they're able to enroll, or before they are enrolled, excuse me, into any of the other courses. So I'm going to look up here's their Getting Started course. We're going to go look at the learning objectives and how that's set up. So the learning objectives you actually tie to a specific element in a course. This was for a checklist completion grade. They have to receive a 100 on that, and it's required. Once they receive their 100 on that, then we use what's called the results engine, and it's based on this grade for this course. So if they finish this course, then we can choose a track to enroll them in. So they actually have to finish the Getting Started course, and once they do, then they're enrolled into the 2.8 track for Chafee so that they can see the rest of their courses. We have also done things where you have advanced courses or an advanced track or an honors track, and if somebody completes the basic requirements and wants to do a little more work, they could, if they score well enough, be automatically sent into a different set of courses. So that's the auto enrolling. You can have it set up to where enrollment is based on certain levels of achievement. You could have it where enrollment is based on membership in a user set. You could have enrollment is based on a time frame where they're automatically put into a course. And in more recent versions, we now actually have the ELIS dashboard. Now, this is one example of the dashboard. This is very similar to what you saw on the Learning Spaces site, where it lists all of the programs and the tracks that a user is in, and it'll list all of the course descriptions with the specific class instances available to them. This would be interesting in a higher ed situation because you can actually have the multiple class instances for each course description, and a user could choose which one they wanted. So I was at Central College of Nursing a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about how their numbers were growing so quickly that they were going to have to start offering morning sessions and afternoon sessions of certain practical skills labs. And so they were going to start using ELIS so that they could have the practical skills would be the course description, and then their students could choose to enroll themselves in the morning or the afternoon version of that course. We also have a new dashboard that I really like. Let's see if I can get logged in as this user so that you can actually see what it looks like. We have one that's much easier to track now. If you are enrolling everyone into the courses for them, they're not really going to get any choice. Then this one is pretty neat because it's a little more straightforward. These dashboards are typically loaded as a block somewhere on the site. So we have what's called the learning plan widget. So this is the original one that I just showed you where it expands out, right? But this one just lists the courses that your user is enrolled in and lets them know their status, if it's passed or not, when it was completed, and what their final grade was. Both of these do have the progress tracking. This is tracking their progress through a specific learning plan or program. So they can kind of keep up with where they are. This one is just a little easier to read, not as much detail though, and no option for choice. This is not one that they can enroll themselves through. They can enroll themselves through this one. So depending on how you want to structure it, you could have some self-enrollment options. As I mentioned earlier, when people finish an entire program, you have the ability through ELIS to issue certificates. And I know a lot of folks are like, well, I can issue certificates in Moodle, and you can, but the certificates that are issued in Moodle are issued for completion of an individual course only. Now you can do that in ELIS as well. You can set a certificate up for a course description, and if anyone finishes a class instance of that course description, they would be awarded the certificate for that course description. So again, if they had to take English 301 and they took the Tuesday, Thursday class instance of English 301, then they could be issued a certificate for English 301 when they finish that one. You also, though, using ELIS, have the ability to issue certificates with based on a completion of the program, which would be that series of courses. So it's almost like once you finished all of the requirements for your degree program, you get a diploma. Kind of the same thing here. If you finish all of the requirements for a program, then you receive a certificate for the program. Anyone that's been going through our Learning Spaces courses has probably received at least one of the certificates. We have them for the site admin, and we have them for the course developer tracks also. So once somebody has finished all of the required courses, the certificate is issued automatically. The certificates are housed in your site. Users can pull them up themselves at any time, and they can download them because they are PDFs, and as you can see, they are customizable. So you have the ability to put a background image as well as any logos that you want and change the border styling too. So lots of options if you're needing something to provide a certification for. And then probably one of the biggest benefits to ELIS is the reporting. So let me just show you on a typical site the reports available. So if I go into the reports section in my Moodle menu, okay, this looks like a lot, and it looks like even more once you start opening all of it. These are the reports that are available that are already pre-configured in a site using ELIS. And you can see we have the ability to pull reports based on an entire program. We have the ability to pull reports based on a user set. We have the ability to pull reports based on individual users, and we can look at specific classes. Some of these reports are going to be more visual. We have some that have the gas gauge. They are all going to have a filtering system available for them so that you can filter. There's our gas gauge, and it gives you whether they've completed it or not, what their score is, right? I don't even know that these people are all necessarily enrolled in that. But the nice thing about these reports is the fact that they are also downloadable, and they can also be scheduled. So if you look down at under reports, you have the schedule reports option. You can schedule any of these reports to run automatically. You can choose how frequent you want them to run. You have to set up a job. You can choose who you want to have receive. You set the parameters, you can set the format, and who is going to receive the copy of the report. So basically, it can be emailed to all of the stakeholders in that piece of information. Again, it could go for user sets, or it could go for a specific program that maybe you're monitoring. So imagine if you had department heads and they needed to monitor the progress of students through a program within their department, that could be sent to them automatically. If you had administrators who needed to monitor the progress of employees who were completing professional development requirements, that could be sent to them automatically as well. So those are the basics of ELIS. It is an extremely powerful add-on to the Moodle system. Definitely increases the amount of flexibility you have in assigning users and in constructing, again, those learning programs. Moodle's very good at handling individual courses. It is not good at retrieving data or allowing functionality across courses. There's not an easy way to do any of that, and ELIS kind of fills that gap in. We have about 13 minutes left. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Hopefully this was a little bit helpful in terms of kind of introducing you to the elements and clarifying how they're all constructed. Yeah, I like the gas gauge too. They have other reports as well. Sorry, I went up to a thing. They have some course completion, site-wide course completion. This one's nice because you can, again, filter for specific courses. Do you want their grade to show? You can. Do you want to know how much time they spent in the course? That's done by days, not by specific hours. They have another one when you're looking at user reports where you can look at user class and you can, excuse me, organization, that's what I was looking for. This is where you can go by user set. So if you're looking for a specific group to see how they're doing, for example, we could pull up all of our Chafee users, or we could pull up all of our remote learner employees and look and see how they're doing. So lots of options available. Well, if you have ELIS on your site, I would encourage you to take some time to kind of look at it, think about ways that it might help you improve some of the processes that you have going on. If you don't have ELIS and you have a site administrator account, you want to go play with it a little more, you're more than welcome, as I said, to go to one of our admin sandboxes and log in and play with the ELIS installation that's on there to see kind of how the nuts and bolts function together. If you have any questions about this or any other webinar topics that we have discussed, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. You can contact me through the support course in Learning Spaces, or you're welcome to email. If you don't have a Learning Spaces account, if you contact Don Hazelwood, I believe most of you should have his number or his email address, then they can pass that information on to me. Happy to answer any questions as we get them. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you back next month when we'll be talking about the new features in Moodle 3.1.